So for the 18th lesson of class, we watched a film called Finding Joe. And I don't know if it fits perfectly into the aesthetics unit. Aesthetics is looking for beauty. And this film explores what is a beautiful life with a healthy dose of epistemology thrown in. And it's a 2011 documentary. I took this from their site, a film by Patrick Takaya Solomon. And it's a film of self-discovery, of really looking at yourself. And again, not pure aesthetics, a lot of epistemology thrown in. And here's the link to the movie if you need to watch it. And I made questions related to the film, and we watched it over a 3-day period. And question one was, interpret the opening quote, "I don't believe people are looking for the meaning of life as much as they are looking for the experience of being alive." And I think philosophy gets a bad rap. People who don't know philosophy think we just sit around and question, what is the meaning of life? Well, Campbell asserts maybe it's not that so much as the experience of being alive, not just biologically alive, like truly, truly alive, whether that be travel. There's me looking over Scotland after I climbed a very, very large hill, or finding romance and love, or embracing family, or occupational moments, or through sport. These moments of really being alive. So I'm curious to what you feel about that quote and what makes you feel very alive. Now, question two, in the movie, there's a story of the Golden Buddha, that there's this gold Buddha that's encased in cement because an invading army comes in, and over time they forget, and the young monk realizes, a piece of concrete falls off, and then he realizes there's gold underneath there. And it's symbolic of the covering. Now, if within us all is a golden Buddha, our pure, authentic self, what are the casings? What's the concrete that hides this goldenness, if you get the metaphor, and I hope you do? And question three, what is the hero's journey? Do you agree that all stories fit into this construct? Think of your favorite story, and does it follow this separation, initiation, return? Now, I know a lot of you have learned about this in a literary sense, but in terms of a life sense or philosophical sense, we're going to ignore the 17 areas on the outside, but this inner ring, I mean, as a high school student, you have been, separated from your, middle school and initiated into high school, and you learn all these lessons and go through all these trials, and eventually you can return and talk to younger people. Here's what's happened. And then you leave high school and you go to college or the military or work. And the cycle continues. So look at this in a philosophical sense, not a literary sense, although it does have literary value. Got to be clear on that. The question four is a straightforward question. What is mythology? Now, mythology is not history. It's not literal. But mythology, there's the textbook definitions, but at the core, these are symbolic stories of ourself and our human traits and our human foibles and all this kind of thing. So when people dismiss mythology, saying, oh, it's just a bunch of nursery rhymes and fables and, nonsense, it's not. These are stories to look at ourselves, so that are symbolic of ourselves. So that's mythology. And then in the film, archetypes. You heard this term archetype. Now, Carl Jung had this term archetype, and it applies to a lot of things. You will see it in literature. You will see it in your personality profiles, Myers-Briggs. You'll see it in marketing. And a lot of different definitions, but it's essentially an image, a pattern, a symbol that rise out of a collective unconsciousness and appear in dreams, mythology, fairy tales. But also, the way I look at it personally, these are some big ideas that transcend place and time. I can look at some of these archetypes, and I can find it throughout time, 1,000 years from now, they will continue. So these are what archetypes are. Now, question six was, there's a part in the film where Deepak Chopra says, select 2 or 3 heroes or heroines and incarnate them into you. Now, not a very common notion in the West to incarnate, but, at the core, it's looking at somebody, and then you say their name and you hope they metaphorically become you. So if you have, as a kid, I remember learning about Teddy Roosevelt and how he just pushed himself and got past asthma and just was tough. He got shot and continued his speech, and I just respected that. So, maybe if I need, resilience or I need toughness, I might say Teddy Roosevelt, and in a sense, his traits become me. And I was curious to who you chose, and it could be anybody. I think it's why we learn about biographies and history and other people, partly. Now, question 7, there's a story in the movie about a tiger living among sheep. And, he's buying and eating grass, and another tiger comes along and says, "You're not a sheep, you're a tiger." And the tiger goes, "No, I'm not." And eventually they take the tiger away, show him that they're a tiger, and then the tiger becomes his strong, true self. And again, these mythology, these stories, they sound childish, but there's a bigger picture. If you are a tiger and you're being fed sheep food, what is this? Now, oftentimes, I think we look at the media, or we look at false information from people, but what was the quote-unquote sheep food that you tigers have been fed? Sheep food can be synonymous with BS or nonsense or misinformation. If you didn't get that, I think all of us did, though. Question 8. Now, when you know the hero's journey, what holds us back from following it? This is more of a personal question. Knowing what we know, why don't you become the hero? And again, I don't have a lot to guide you here because it's of a very personal nature, but what is holding you back from being the hero in your journey is the question. Now, question 9, there's a line in the film that says, "We wake up being the hero of our own life when we become tired of the victim of it." And he says we have 3 choices. Now, in our lives, you can go to victimhood, saying, "Oh, it's somebody else's fault, blame, 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 deflect. It's never about you, it's somebody else." You can adopt fundamentalist thinking where there's one way of doing things, the way we always do it, very black and white. It's simple, it's comforting. Is it the best way to go? Or choice 3, becoming the hero of your own story. Now, this means you're not doing this. You're taking ownership of your life, and you are freeing yourself from any construct that you might not like. Okay, these are the simpler routes. These 2 are easy. This is hard, but Campbell, and I feel the film, makes the point that this is the best course of action. Question 10 in the film, there's a story of the Arthurian legends and the knights, and they set off on their own path. And in King Arthur, I hope you know the basic story, where they seek the Holy Grail, and instead of going as one unit, they go into the forest at different points. And this is symbolic of, I think, especially for high school seniors, you are going into the forest of adulthood. There are simple paths. There are paths that are well tread. Might not be your path. So what is the symbolism of this Arthurian legend, this individual path? Maybe the harder one, but the more authentic one. Now, question 11. Campbell instructs us to follow our bliss. Now, this looked at the origins, and the origins were found in the Upanishads from the Indian tradition. And Campbell said, well, there's Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Beingness, consciousness, and bliss. And I feel it's pretty safe to say where he said, me too, beingness is a toughie. Consciousness is a toughie, but bliss I can tap into. And bliss isn't just happiness or fun or it's deep, serene, just being at peace. And that's what bliss is. And he said to follow this. Probably his most famous line. Now, question 12 is related to this. How do we find our bliss? And how do you balance security with your bliss? And this is a tough question. And again, this is a very personal question because, in the movie they said, if money was no object and time was no object, what would you be doing with your time? Therein lies your bliss. So, for example, if money and time were no object, I would travel the world. Well, I have children and I have a job and I have bills to pay. Now, does that mean I have to neglect what's blissful to me? No, you can still think about the trips you're going to go on and imagine and plan and go on one once a year. And people have different notions of how much they value security over bliss. Some people throw caution to the wind and pursue their bliss just all out gung-ho. Other people are a little more cautious to say, I'm going to take the straight route and side with security. So again, a lot of these questions are of a personal nature. That's why it has an epistemological bend. We're looking at our ways of thinking. And question 13, what causes people not to follow their bliss? What's inhibiting you? And again, more of a personal, introspective sort of question. Question 14, in the film, they talk about the dragon. Now, the dragon is this mythical monster that appears throughout history, and in relation to us, these are the things that make us feel small. These are the things that hold us back. These are the things that keep us up at night. These are the things that are scary and they need to be slain, within yourself philosophically or psychologically to reach that bliss. So the dragons are the scary things. These are the things that you have to look right in the eye and kill it like they have in these stories. And the 15th question related to this, in the film they said we ultimately have to fight ourselves, which is related to that dragon question. What's preventing us from getting to that level, these things that we're fighting within ourselves. So very much related to the dragon question. And the final question of the film, I wanted you to choose one of the quotes from the film and apply it to a personal story in your life. So majority of these quotes are from Joseph Campbell. In fact, I put JC next to them instead of writing it the whole time. And pick one of these quotes that strike a chord with you. I don't believe people are looking for the meaning of life as much as they are looking for the experience of being alive. Quote 2, the function of mythological symbols is to give you a sense of, aha, yes, I know what it is. It's myself. Number 3, your life is the fruit of your own doing. You have no one to blame but yourself. The call to adventure signifies that destiny has summoned the hero. This is not from Joseph Campbell. The snake that cannot shed its skin must perish. This is from Nietzsche. And again, this death and rebirth, not a biological death, but a death of your old self and a rebirth. Now, we addressed it a little bit during the Ship of Theseus lessons, very similar to that. Quote 6, we must be willing to get rid of the life we've planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. And as an older guy compared to you, I can tell you this has held true for me a number of times. And then from the film, Akiva Goldman said, it's not what happens to us, but what we do with it. And that's a powerful notion. And it's very similar going back to the 3 choices we have, not victimhood, but being the hero of your own life. Quote 8, the universe will open doors where there are only walls. And that's when you embrace this true, authentic self. The universe will open up where places blocked you from getting to that place in the past. Quote 9, what will they think of me must be put aside for bliss. And this is a little off-putting to some people because this flies in the face of convention and maybe the custom and the way you were raised. But Campbell said, you know what, you have one life, it better be a blissful one. Rumi, this is not a Joseph Campbell quote. Quote 10 said, I want to sing like birds sing, not worrying who listens or what they think. And if you can do that in high school, more power to you. It's pretty seldom I get to see that. Quote 11, find a place where there is joy and the joy will burn out the pain. This one definitely strikes a chord. I'll tell you, 6 and 11, if I was doing the assignment, would be the 2 I would riff off of because I've seen these 2 hold true time and time again. And the last 2, opportunities to find deeper powers within ourselves come when life seems most challenging. And the final quote, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. So to wrap this up, this is Joseph Campbell's philosophy done in a modern sense. The 20 people who were chosen were people who had success in all different arenas in life. And I appreciate your candor and your honesty, and I hope this movie at the end where it said finding all those different people, you ultimately find yourself a little better after watching it. So thank you for watching.